We have a report of a plane crash somewhere in the area of the Pentagon. We're trying to get further.
61 Arlington, we copied. All units responding from Arlington. Well, we got planes down. We got planes down. It looks like in the Crystal City area by 14th Street Bridge. We all responded.
They're evacuating us now. They believe another plane. This could be a rumor, but they're evacuating everybody. Possibility of another plane coming in this direction.
I didn't believe it. I was driving on the Beltway, just dropping my kids off from school, and I heard on the news, and at first I thought it was like the Orson Welles show where it had it was a fake news telecast, because it just couldn't have really happened.
I was actually just at work, normal day, like everybody else.
I was actually in my office in Leesburg and watched it on TV just as everyone else did.
You remember the gorgeous day. It was a beautiful, beautiful sunny day weather-wise. And the contrast between the smoke in the sky and the blue skies all around was just, it was overwhelming.
I had a meeting at 9 o'clock, so I just kind of went through to the E-quarters and was waiting for the meeting to start. And I think we had just started the meeting.
I had been watching the TV as long as we could, listen to the spin doctors and the analysts talk about all that had happened in New York, and I was actually standing over by the window next to my desk, getting ready to go for a run. I said, I just need to clear my head and go out for a run, and that's when the airplane hit the Pentagon.
And all of a sudden, it was just like the Pentagon had been picked up and kind of moved an inch or something. It was really a weird feeling. And I remember the tiles falling out of the ceiling. And we all just jumped up and started to run.
I remember just getting lifted up momentarily. My left foot seemed to be lifted up, and I looked up and I saw just a huge flash and kind of a fireball with debris coming towards the window. I thought for sure that was it. I thought, I don't know what this is, a truck bomb or whatever it is, but it's unusual and I'm about to die. Really, that's what I thought.
Total chaos, and people were running, and you remember how you saw the white smoke at the in the New York area, where the white smoke was like following the people down the street. As we ran into it, we went to an exit. As I got to that exit, I hesitated because I wasn't sure I wanted to go through the door. Bear in mind, I'm not sure I realized that the Pentagon had been hit by a plane.
When that airplane exploded, came through, the pressure of that explosion actually went up to the stairwell right next to our office. When it hit the ceiling, it had nowhere to go, so it blew out some of the walls, and some of those big, gigantic granite blocks were coming across our office like cruise missiles and hit a few people and had some pretty good head lacerations, so we had to get them to medical.
It was just going toward Memorial Bridge. So we ran there and we just pretty much kind of huddled together trying to figure out, you know, who was there and where people were and things like that.
It seemed like those of us who were in uniform, those of us who were active duty military, we were in a dead sprint to get to the impact point. Somehow if we can help man a hose or apply first aid, whatever it was. But those guys from Arlington County, the first responders, they were there already.
On that day, the Arlington Fire Department responded quickly. In fact, they had a unit that actually saw the plane hit the Pentagon, so they were on the scene within seconds. They mobilized all the available resources that they had. The way I look at it is if you respond to the small incidents very well and you practice and practice and practice, you're more likely to do well on the bigger incidents. So really all the training and the experience that Arlington County had had in emergency response throughout the years, and the dedicated people that this county is so fortunate to have, really shined on 9/11. The saying was not if, but when. And the when came on 9/11.
That fire burned for a long time, and they put themselves at great danger, great risk to save people, but I know they saved a lot of people. My hat's off to those Arlington County first responders. They really did an incredible job.
I don't think any community is prepared for such a shock to actually be hit the way Arlington County was on that day.
Northern Virginia Family Service responded immediately to the attack through some of our EAP crisis counseling. Immediately after the aftermath of September 11th, the Community Foundation developed the Survivors Fund, which ultimately became a $25 million long-term recovery fund for victims of the 9/11 Pentagon attack, and they approached NVFS to be their principal partner in both developing and implementing this program, which ended up being a long-term, about a 7-year project.
When I think about 9/11, I don't necessarily think of, you know, the World Trade Center or the Pentagon. I don't necessarily think of those things first. I think about the work that we did. I was there for the last 4 years, so I had, much like a lot of other people in the community that weren't directly affected by 9/11, had sort of, in a way, moved on. You continue to do your daily life and do your job, and then coming on board to Survivors Fund 3 years into the project, 3 years after the incident, all of a sudden you're re-submerged.
Everybody had a very unique, sometimes challenging, sometimes inspiring, but always amazing story. And just being able to be a part of the journey that people were making, to me, is very profoundly affecting. And I think those of us that are in the helping professions really are lucky at times to be able to work with people who are making such incredible changes.
So in my daily life, I'm affected because I had the opportunity to work for Survivors Fund.
It's absolutely an honor to be able to share that with people and to be able to offer what we hope is helpful, supportive guidance, and to maybe have a small part in their incredible and sometimes really difficult journey. A survivor once said, you know, people keep telling me to move on, and that doesn't feel right. That those words to that particular survivor, moving on is not possible. Maybe moving forward, maybe moving through, but moving on means getting over it, and that to this particular person was not going to happen. We know that anniversaries can be really, really challenging, so I think there will be increased media coverage, the 10-year anniversary.
I think community service is a beautiful way to show respect for what happened on September 11th. Bad things can happen, but what really matters is when good people pick up the pieces and get stronger for that.
After the events and after Survivors Fund had been in operation for a while, many communities tried to get together to look ahead and sort of plan and really do sort of a lessons learned to look at how do we as a community stay prepared in the event of another disaster.
The Office of Emergency Management was actually created as a result of 9/11. In order to give the office some nexus with public safety other than the emergency preparedness, it was decided to take the 911 Center, the Emergency Communications Center, out from under the police department and put it in the Office of Emergency Management. We need families to be prepared. It will actually help the response if you're better prepared out there in the community. You're actually helping us. The other thing you can do is, by staying prepared, stay off the roads, because people just getting out and clogging up the roads, while it's very inconvenient for them and their families, it also inhibits the response of emergency vehicles and supplies and logistical needs that we have a need for. So we all work in this circle together. CERT is a community emergency response team, and Arlington County has a very robust CERT program. And I would encourage everybody that has an inclination to do so to please consider joining CERT and going through the training, because the training is multifaceted. You learn a little bit about first aid, you learn a little bit about controlling utilities and staying away from power lines, you learn a little bit about firefighting, just enough to help in an emergency, even a small emergency. So we try to train for all hazards, and we try to prepare our community for all hazards, not just terrorist events. This office was created to help coordinate emergency resources, but also to engage the partners in businesses, nonprofit organizations, schools, the community, civic associations, everybody. We're all emergency managers the way I look at it. Because let's face it, the first responders aren't necessarily the people on the fire trucks or the medic units or the police cars. They're usually people like you and I that see something and take some type of action.
There are so many important things that people could do right now. We need to help them remember that at any given time, everything we know that hold dear could be totally destroyed. I mean, in America, you don't think that can happen, but it can.
This is definitely a keepsake for those of us that are survivors for 9/11 that were there. So we did have the memorial service, and then we had those lost and missing.
We were closely related to a number of the victims. Brian was burned, about 60 or 70% of his body was burned. Army Lieutenant Colonel Jerry Dickerson was killed. In fact, that night I had to go and bring that news to his family. I had to share that news about his passing to the family. The whole community, Arlington County, Fairfax County, everybody had somebody that was touched by what had happened.
One of my mom's friends lost her dear friend. Her name was Anne, and on 9/11 she was taking 2 kids who had won a contest to California, and they crashed.
One of the other things that I have is, which we got, was a tribute to the OAA Memorial family, and this is just a recap of all the people that died in that. Also included in that, in this first program, was the flag that we got to go with the October 11th one. So I kind of keep this together. So this is very special for me.
It took me a while to go to the Pentagon Memorial. Not for desire, but I just couldn't go there.
I finally went maybe about a year ago, and actually I thought it was very well done.
But about a year ago, I went with my wife, and we just spent about an hour there just walking and looking at all the different benches. The ones that are pointing into the building, simulating those that were on the airplane, the ones that are pointing out, representing those that were in the building itself. And it was very sobering.
I didn't think I was going to make it through it, but it was very calming, very serene, and it was nice.
And I could just reflect, think back on what happened at this ground, people's lives that were saved, right there where they built the memorial, people's lives that were lost.
We actually visited the memorials for each of our 5 co-workers that died in that, one being my immediate boss.
What a fitting tribute, I think, and really very, very well done to what happened that day. That literally is holy ground. That's hollow ground now for many, many people, those that have served, those that didn't even know anybody in the Pentagon, but they know what happened there. So it really is a special place.
After 9/11, Arlington County was offering to plant a bunch of tulip poplars in the neighborhood to commemorate the occurrences on 9/11.
People started to look at what was important, and that was the relationships. I think there was a better appreciation for checking on my neighbor, or just being a good neighbor.
We had all our neighbors come down, and we had a prayer, and we just talked about our feelings about what we hoped the tree would symbolize and commemorate, and then we sang the national anthem as we planted it. This tree just seemed like a really good idea to help commemorate the loss that occurred on that day.
You don't take life for granted. You don't take the people around you for granted.
It's just a reminder of what we have, and to be thankful for it, and to never forget.
I love the variety in Arlington. I love the diversity.
Yeah, I do enjoy living at Columbia Pike.
It's nice.
Yes.
A lot of places to eat.
Yeah, it's a lot of food.
And
you can walk down the Pike.
Metro accessible.
It's always interesting. You get like a lot of people from DC and the bars, and it's a great little town, you know?
Columbia Pike just kind of feels like home to me.
There's a lot of restaurants nearby.
So close to so many means of transportation.
In the mindset of the 50s, The new American dream was basically a suburban dream where people would live in nice single-family homes with a yard and a dog, and they would have nice families and they would commute to. But now we begin to go back and to focus again into our urban environments and our downtowns, and it's not an easy place to plan anymore. You have to plan big. My name is Takis Karantonis. I'm Executive Director of the Columbia Pike Revitalization Organization, which people in Arlington know as CPRO. So CPRO has a mission. The mission is to revitalize Columbia Pike. And my job is to make this happen. And revitalization is a very comprehensive concept. I mean, it includes economic revitalization, social, cultural, etc. So it's an overall improvement as much as we can and as far as we can in all particular disciplines.
The Pike at that time, the 2000 census, was among the most ethnically diverse zip codes. The 22204 zip code is among the most ethnically diverse zip codes in the country, and as a result in the planet. We know now that it is no longer as diverse as it was.
Diversity is the Pike. So on the Pike we are many languages, many cultures, many religions. Historically, diversity is a product of developing areas. It was the prospect of economic growth that brought people to a certain place. The reason why we have a housing problem in Arlington is because Arlington is a very desirable place to live.
Well, we were one of the first new projects to be built on the Pike. About a year ago, we finished a mixed-use building that we're in right now that is 200 apartments, about 30,000 square feet of retail, and about 15,000 square feet of office space.
Because of the housing bubble burst, they're not filling up as rapidly as they would have, but they're radically different than physically than the Pike had been, which was mostly garden apartments, set back, lots of greenery, modest in cost. A lot of people's when they first came to DC, their first jobs were there. And a lot of the immigrants' families can move in there, young people can move in there. The newer places are much more expensive.
I mean, the negative effect is the housing is so expensive, but I mean, people can afford it, I guess, if they work for the government or whatnot. But for a one-bedroom, I hear it's like $1,850, which is outrageous. But it's a good thing. It means that people have money to spend, and it's good for business and the economy. So.
Yeah, I mean, everything here is so expensive. Like a townhouse, like our townhouse is like $500,000, and for that money and like less than that, you can buy like a really, really big house like Fairfax. So it's a huge issue, I think.
We found the county and the residents in the neighborhood very welcoming. You know, it's been hard during the construction, but generally we felt the businesses were very open and excited about our project, and the neighbors very patient and looking forward to, you know, the new look for Columbia Pike. Well, this site where we have our beautiful building here today was a Safeway store that had been boarded up and abandoned and was quite honestly an eyesore when we bought it. So this lot here was transformed basically in a couple of years.
I think there's going to be less interchange up and down as you walk around between groups. I think you're not going to run into a Palestinian, a Turk, a Moroccan, a Somali, etc. in the course of going to the laundromat, because there won't be a laundromat because it's going to be too upscale.
Well, we've attracted a lot of young professionals to the area. There are more opportunities and options for people to live in the area. Before, there weren't many high-end rental options.
The apartments are really nice, they're really big, and they're just very luxurious.
I think it will be unrecognizable in another 5 years.
You know, instead of all that green space, it's going to be what's happened in Boston. It's going to be very urban looking. I personally am not real thrilled with that.
We have to keep talking with everybody involved to to find a viable way to keep a good housing mix. A good housing mix doesn't only mean affordable housing, it means housing in all types.
You know, our residents are supporting the older businesses that are right across the street. So it's all you know, working well and supporting what has been here and what is coming.
The rents will become so much that it's going to be just, you know, chains. We have a handful of chain stores along there. There's a Wendy's and a couple of McDonald's, a couple of others, but largely it's individually owned local shops. And it's going to be harder for an entrepreneurial young business person to get started, you know.
We would like actually for new businesses to come here because they see that that the established ones thrive.
Well, it will attract people from outside the area to the businesses, you know, to patrons of the restaurant and the fitness center and the wine bar and so forth.
We've been here about 1.5 years. We opened in March of last year. We have a lot of camaraderie on the Pike, a lot of sort of an idea that you know, the more people coming to the Pike, the better for us, for everyone. So we're all kind of help each other out. Actually, a couple times when we have an issue, let's say our dishwasher broke, I would go to the restaurants next door and ask if anyone could come over and help. And every time someone will, you know, we'll help each other out. So the customers are great. We have a really strong sense of community here. Twisted Vines, we have a lot of regulars that come in and kind of become friends with the staff and myself. And it's made a big difference for us.
To be honest with you, business is better than ever, and it's a great thing. We've been packed, and we're definitely looking to grow. We're looking to open another store in the future and continue to grow with the Pike.
We know from Clarendon and from Ballston and from Crystal City and from Pentagon City that a very good transportation system means a lot for economic and social development. The likelihood that you will decide for opening your business on the Pike, on a streetcar Pike, is higher. So it's a very serious thing. We cannot afford to do any errors on the side of not delivering transportation.
To me, it's about creating buzz for the community. Some of that's good. I think the job of government is partly to cheerlead, but it strikes me as that if it was really about transportation, just transportation, buying a few buses, gas-powered buses, and creating nicer stops would do the same thing. I remember the trolleys in DC. And they tore them up because it got to be, oh, we don't want them anymore.
We've had such cheap gas for such a long time that seemed a bargain. Now, of course, we wish we hadn't done that, and we wish we had those tracks back, and we wish we had those systems back, because they were very much more energy efficient and very much more aesthetically pleasing to a lot of people.
If the trolley car comes in, I think commuting is going to be a lot easier for people who live on the Pike. So I think all in all, life on the Pike is going to be better.
In hundreds of cities, streetcars came with the bonus of additional economic activity. How this happens is easy to understand if you see transportation from the point of view of somebody who creates jobs, so business people.
Some people, I've heard people, a lot of concern about, you know, traffic and parking changes, and those are sort of, you know, I would say minor negative effects, but there's also a greater risk of just general gentrification, and that's not something I don't think anyone wants on the Pike.
They create these models and they look cute on paper or on their little maquettes, but it's real people get uprooted, and then they're gone, you know, and then, you know, they buy their, you know, summer place in Hilton Head with it, but we have to live with the consequences.
When we talk about housing, when we talk about transportation, one of the issues that makes us so fervous in supporting streetcar solutions and public transportation solutions is actually also to keep diversity, because It makes a difference if you have to have a car and you have to be in a family with 2 cars or 3 cars sometimes, and just have the ability to ditch them and be able to live on the Pike. We accept and we believe that we have to be proactive in keeping diversity alive. We have to do everything that it takes with an eye of how to support diversity.
People don't live in enclaves. It's not the Italian neighborhood next to the Dominican neighborhood, next to the Russian neighborhood, next to the Arab neighborhood, next to the Jewish neighborhood. People all live mingled.
It isn't a good idea to have neighborhoods that are dominated by one type of people and others that are dominated by a different type of people that have dominating demographics, because this doesn't promote interconnectivity, doesn't promote communication.
The identity that I've sort of felt is this celebration of diversity and everybody getting along. You know, it really is a melting pot. It used to be that the American mix was more of a stew, lots of chunks. We really were blended. This flowering of, you know, every culture on the planet. When I looked at it, I realized it's not as intense now.
We've learned that communities that are diverse in income, socially, demographically, culturally, are more resilient. These communities take crisis in a far better way. And you know something, cyclical crisis is the way we live. And we will have them again and again. So the more we keep our population diverse, the better we are off in all possible ways.
And change is inevitable. It's just, it'd be nice to keep the good with the changes. You know, once it's gone, you know, and it won't be green, you know, and it won't be wide open spaces, and it won't be, you know, the mix we have. For every, you know, consequences and many unintended consequences.
Columbia Pike is a celebration of freedom in terms that people from all parts of the world could come here, settle here, and begin an economic and social life while being respected and actually supported in what they were doing. And that's the whole formula we want to keep. We want to keep the promise alive. We want Columbia Pike to be a place where people from all cultures, from all types, all walks of life look upon and say, this is a good place to go, to live, to enjoy, to work, and to have families and children, and have a second generation that will be better off than mine, etc., etc. This is the whole point. This is why diversity is important. Diversity measures our success in being a free place with chances for everybody.